The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is not to underestimate the historical obstacles to the development of democratic institutions and a democratic culture.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is not to underestimate the historical obstacles to the development of democratic institutions and a democratic culture.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Such problems nearly destroyed our country. And that should encourage a spirit of humility and a patience with others. Freedom is not merely a political menu option or a foreign policy fad. It should be the defining commitment of our country and the hope of the world. That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy. That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy. No democracy pretends to be a tyranny. Most tyrannies pretend they are democracies. Democracy remains the definition of political legitimacy. That has not changed, and that will not change. That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
A noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
A noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
Welcome, everybody. We're gathered here on Skype this Saturday, Sabbath day at May 19th, 2018, to read and discuss with Jörg Lissman and Michael from Germany and Jörg Lissman from Belgium, Codeword Barbelon, Danger in the Vatican. And we are in the chapter, Sacred Symbols and Secret Rites, page 441. So, welcome, Jörg and Michael.
Thank you, Brett, for the invitation, and thanks for you for taking the time in your busy schedule to still have the time to sit down with us on Skype and hopefully finishing the reading within the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Because we have come to page 441, as you so righteously said, and the book ends more or less on page, what is that here? That's already the appendix. On page 525, so we have about some 80 pages to go. It's not that I want to rush through it, but it has been a monumental work that we have done the last half year. I think we started somewhere in December, starting with this book reading, and we all have a lot of work to do in the Antichrist system the coming weeks and months. And then we can take a well-deserved break before we start maybe at the fall of the year with volume 2 of Codeword Barbelon, The Antichrist is a Woman, Alive and Well. And by the way, when it comes to that, remind me, Brett,
yes.
that I have already a comment on that title. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, The Antichrist is a woman? Come on. What does the Bible say?
Yeah, it's a woman
The
of
Bible,
revelation.
the Bible speaks of the man of sin and the son of perdition. Those are both male, not female. The Antichrist church is a woman, yeah, but the Antichrist is a man, the man of sin. You know? I mean,
okay, I'm just waking
that,
up again. That's my lame excuse.
You just have to be specific, and
right?
I'm just saying that because
I like
yesterday,
that. You're perfect.
It's just because yesterday I was reading with Michael in the Griesinger book and on the Jesuits, and I made a comment on there on Tom Friess, who read Codeword Barbelon in 2010. And I told you that that I didn't want to listen to his reading while I'm reading this book myself, because I don't want to be a parrot of Tom Friess. I want to do my own reading and my own comments along with you.
I understand that.
And I don't want to be a parent of Tom Friess, but Tom Friess said something so profoundly yesterday in one of the very first sessions of Codeword Barbelon, because now I'm listening to this because these we have already long time ago recorded.
That's
so
right.
There's no need not to listen to Tom anymore. But he made such a profound comment that I really would like to start with today to explain to you, because yesterday I translated that what Tom said in English to German when we were doing that Griesinger reading, because we were speaking about JFK and his speech on the secret societies, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Which a lot of people think that speech is that one that got him killed. I have, of course, another opinion of that. But before I start with that, let's first introduce Michael, because I'm taking all the talk time here, and Michael is there too to say hello. Hello, Michael.
Hello. Yeah, it's a warm hello and greetings to you both, guys. And thank you very much also to Brad, because I very much admire his work. I just ran into his video of he published today.
Yeah.
And yeah, you are some kind of video artist, and very
well, it runs in the blood. I'll tell you, my dad was a graphic artist. So
okay.
Did I ever tell you that, Michael?
No.
He was a painter, a graphic artist, very talented with his craft of making art. And of course, I was subjected to that when I was little. And of course, my brother, he's a historian, and he's really not into using his hands at all. But I'm all about my hands, and I've really enjoyed that. But anyway, yeah, please.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good combination together with Jörg. So. Not that Jörg cannot make good videos, don't get me wrong on that, but you got a certain style of it, and I think it is very much appreciated.
It has very much to do with how my parents raised me. I actually was blessed with parents that actually got along really well, and that's kind of rare, I guess. I don't know. It seems to be, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not as rare as I think. It's just this day and age.
No. In today's society, that is very rare. And I know what I'm talking about. My parents have been married for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I know that they have gone through some difficult times.
Yeah.
But they always stuck together. And then came the year 1992 when my son was born. And a little bit after that, my father died in the same year, only 50 years of age. And we have today 2018, so that's 26 years ago. Right. So my mother has been a widow for 26 years, and she still is not over that. No. And I understand that, because they really had a wonderful relationship, something that you very, very rarely find in families today, Brett. Let's make sure about that. So you were blessed with a stable family household, with a father and a mother that loved each other and that loved their children, and they raised their children in the best way that they could. I mean, you were raised Lutheran,
right?
Your parents didn't know about all that ecumenical movement and all that stuff. They have been betrayed because they trusted their pastor, like most of the people do.
That's right, Jörg. And I was raised to be that way. I was raised to trust my pastor and go to my church. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, but when you have been raised in a loving home, in a loving family, with a loving father and mother who love each other and have a good or well-working marriage, that's wonderful. And in today's world, where is that? I mean, I just think of myself. You know, I was married for 13 years, and if it depended on me, I would still be married today.
Yes.
But the bitch went away. You know.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand.
To use these words, she fornicated around, so there was no keeping her as a wife anymore.
I understand that.
And this is what happens to most of the people today. And like my son, he grew up in an unstable family and unstable family circumstances in that time, and that reflects sooner or later on your behavior for the rest of your life, without that you can do anything about it. And I was raised in a very warm and loving family environment. I was the only son also. And I have so many thanks to say to my Heavenly Father for the family that He put me in, that raised me up. I'm so glad for that, and so should you be. And I guess the same as Michael. He also lost his father some years ago, I understood. But also comes from a stable family, right?
Yes, very stable family, and also. As a matter of fact, yesterday I went upstairs to my parents' flat, and I just looked up some old photo albums of my dad and my mom, and I'm also very into him. I miss him very much because I didn't had the chance to talk to him with so many things, also about the belief system, and so I would give very much for that if I would had the chance to talk to him about it. And I run into so many nice pictures where both of my parents seem so lucky, and and wedding pictures and etc. And I regretted that I haven't met my father as he was young and strong and handsome and positive, and I only remember him as a weaker older man, you see, and that's a thing. I was blessed that I was a child which was expected to be I'm the only son, you see. I was a desired child. I wasn't done by mistake, and so it seems.
Me too.
And so on the other hand, I have very much understanding for individuals. Let me tell it that way. Who I met who don't have who hadn't this stable relationship because they got so much problems in relationships on their own, and so I got very much understanding for these people because I know what I have to what I had a good childhood, but on the other hand, if people don't have these stable parents, I think they will have the same behavior and looking for the same stress and so forth. They have discovered as they were childs, right. And so that's the thing that makes me very sad because the stable family is a goal, and I'm now separated from my girlfriend also, and I hope the very best for her because she doesn't come from a stable family either, and so I have very much understanding for her decisions, but nevertheless I feel very sorry because it seems that children are a product of the experience they had with their parents, and so there are even some people say that you are looking for the same woman, which is similar to your own mother in some kind of way. I don't know if that's correct, but you're looking for security. You're looking for something in the future you can rely on. Yeah. And these people who don't have stable relationships of their parents, they cannot. I think they cannot imagine that this is possible, and it is possible.
Yeah, it's just a really sad truth that we live in such a perverted society, really.
Yeah, you see, in 50 years ago when I was raised, it was used to be that the father went out and drove to work, and the mother was at home doing the kitchen and the household, and was caring about the children. It was a very natural thing to do, and they had time for the children, and they could raise them with all love, and had much time to answer the questions. And I even had my grandparents around, so I was never alone, and I had very high amount of books I could read, and I was very curious young guy, and so I discovered lots of books, and I asked my grandfather some things, and he went out for me in nature. I raised up with all kind of animals, with dogs, with birds, with cats, with rabbits, and so on, and appreciated the value also of animals and everything which is in nature. And nowadays, when I see that both parents have to get to work to get around in some way or other, then there's no time for the little ones. They are placed in front of the television or in the radio, and nobody can answer the questions, and they are confused and stiffed up with all kinds of useless and demonic information. And that wasn't the thing 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. So they are very much on their own. And I think that's a goal, that the children are on their own, so that the state system, the official system, can indoctrinate them. So they are not anymore under the influence of their natural parents, and so they can be influenced very, very much. And I think we are all about the same age, and we are blessed that we haven't discovered this in 40, 50 years ago. So that we are all blessed that our parents did have time to care about us, and to that always was some guy around who had time to answer our questions, and to have time, and you need time to explore things, to question something. And nowadays you look at for example, you look at a promotion clip on the television, and the informations are blistering out in a frame of a second, and this and that, and cheap and great and war and guy and be sexy and be well and welfare and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
and
right.
you cannot think for yourself, because you are confronted with so much information which you can't you can't use at all. So that's the thing. If you're looking at an older movie, the action is very slowly. If you look for example, what kind of movie? Humphrey Bogart movie. Look at a Humphrey Bogart movie. Facial expressions are building up for seconds, and nowadays it's so speedy, it's so fast that you cannot keep up. And I think that's a system with working with subliminal information, working with demonic information, and so on and so forth. I think we have discussed this quite often, and I ran into so much videos also of Jörg, which he call when he states of the church Inter Mirifica from 1963, where the church claims to have the birthright for all medias, to control and to own the media. And you see that the word is not spread, but it's just what is spread is quite the opposite. What is spread is that the wealthy, the earthly kingdom is the ones we should desire. We should desire fast cars, beautiful women, big houses, luxury in every kind of way, and I think that's quite it's quite obvious. Don't you think it's so obvious that the real values are not even talked about anymore, because you see, in Russia, I got the information that in Russia you don't have to, you're not allowed to preach anymore. You don't allowed to preach anymore about Jesus Christ. Even, you see,
you're not allowed to proselyte outside of the church in Russia, since there's a law from the August of 2015, if I'm not mistaken, or 2016. I don't remember anymore. Yeah, I made a video about that. By the way,
Antichrist laws.
Just on another note, Michael, just a second. Turn your mic a little bit more away from your mouth, because here and there it makes a disturbing noise. Like yesterday when I told you that you were sitting a little bit too close to your microphone.
Okay, I see.
And by the way, thank you very much for your explanation that you just gave, Michael. I couldn't agree more, and I know Brett couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. And this is the wonderful thing in this little round of the three people who are gathered here together via Skype in the name of Jesus Christ, that we have the same understanding, the same spirit is leading us, and we all think in that regard, what you were just saying, the same things. I just want to make a little point to a video that I made some years ago, and Brett knows of that. The externalization of the hierarchy. I think altogether 5 hours, full packed, of the satanic 10 commandments from Lucis Trust, which we called the externalization of the hierarchy, based on a writing from Alice Bailey, which exactly names all the points that you were just saying about the family values that were taken away some 50 years ago.
Yes,
in the 1960s. It started in the United States with a 1963 revoking the morning prayer from the schools. That was obligatory up to then in the United States of America in the morning to have a common prayer. But just in the year that JFK, the first Catholic president of the United States of America, was killed, that prayer was abandoned from school. From the mid-60s on, you have rising numbers of divorces. Before that, it was occasionally that families split up and the parents divorced. From the mid-1960s on, it became the norm. That means what before was the exception, then later became the normality. From the end of the 60s on through the 1970s, 80s, and so on. Today, I think there are more people divorced than are getting married. And there are more marriages that are going to be divorced than the marriages that keep on running for 20, 25, 30 years. And that is because of the externalization of the hierarchy. So for the people who don't know this, these videos can be found in my playlist, Nothing But the Truth, and they are absolutely worth your while watching, even though they are a few years old and I didn't know then what I know now. But still, they are absolutely worth watching. And we did that with Michael Adams, Walt Stickle, Tom Fress. You weren't there, Brett, because I didn't know you at that time, of course.
That's right,
But absolutely worthwhile watching, you know? Absolutely worthwhile watching these videos, and they confirm every point that Michael just made wonderfully. And that's the problem what we live in today. The Antichrist wants to split up the family because the family is the smallest social unit you have within a nation. And to split up the nation, you have to start in the beginning, because you have to take out the roots of the culture and the roots of the social connections. And when you take away the social connection between a young child and his parents and put the young child under the commission of the state, as it is done when the children are put into daycare centers and kindergartens and preschool and school, the influence comes from, as Michael just said, not only does have the Roman Catholic Church the quote-unquote inherent right, as they quoted in Miranda in Inter Mirifica, to own all media, but also the church says that they have the absolute and only right to educate and to educate the children. And this is what the Jesuits did from the start. The first thing they were doing were building schools and taking care of that their learning against learning, that their Gnostic learning took over from the learning of the Bible. And this is the system that we live in today. And that is why it is so hard for most people to understand and find to God, to the Creator, because they are diverted into every kind of direction, be it with movies, video series, television series, computer games, entertaining books, even though people don't read anymore. I mean, not like they used to, you know, but to be entertained instead of studying the Bible and the important things. And that is a result of the externalization of the hierarchy, for which I can just want to promote these videos to you, to have a look at them and then to understand where this all roots in. And this is the point that Michael was making. We can be we can consider ourselves so blessed that we have had the childhood that we had and that we grew into the persons that we are because we were, and whether you want to believe it or not, I don't care, we were protected by the hand of God, that He made us the persons that we always wanted to be. He took care that we became the persons and the men that we are today. Only through His guidance, only through His presupposition, only through His preeminence, not through ourselves, but by the grace of God, not through our works, lest that any man should boast, as the Bible says, but through the grace of God, we are the people that we are today. And that is why we are sitting here together and want to deliver to you another reading of Codeword, Barbelon, and all the other things that we want to do, and share with you, and even share with you our private thoughts and private experiences, which is, some people say, idiotic to put that out in the open, and nobody's interested in who you are or what you are, what you have experienced in your life or whatsoever, and you shouldn't share all your secrets, quote unquote, in the public, even not via YouTube videos. But I don't agree. I am not ashamed of who I am, and I am not ashamed of the way I am, how I became I am. The way that was my development into the position that I am today. And I know Michael is not, and I know you, Brett, are not. No. So this is very important for us to share, because here and there are people who will listen to this video, who will see a resemblance of their own life to ours, or they see how different it can go when you have a life like we had, compared to the life that they had. And they said, well, maybe not all is wrong when there are people who have had such a wonderful life. And with wonderful life, don't get me wrong, I am not saying having a life in riches, because neither Brett nor Michael, and surely not me, were raised in rich families. Yeah. My mother even worked from a few years when I was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, she started half-time working again. But she wanted to, and then she came a few years later back because I had trouble in school. She said, no, it's better for me to stay home. And then she stayed home again, and then she went working again. But we were living in the times that it was not enough anymore for the man to provide for the living of the whole family, as it was supposed to be. As Michael said, when you go 50, 60, 70 years back, in that time, it was not, quote unquote, necessary for the woman to work. Some women wanted to work, but it was not, quote unquote, necessary. The man could still be the provider of the whole family. Today, except for that man is, of course, a very apostate, probably Freemason or whatever, who works in some high regions, in some high-class companies or whatever he works in, and earns a lot of money. For the normal, for John Doe, let's say, it is not possible anymore that the man works and provides for a family that consists of a loving wife that is at home together with 1, 2, or maybe even 3 or more children. Absolutely impossible in this system. And we all have to thank it to the externalization of the hierarchy. Just wanted to say that, but back to you guys.
Thanks, Jörg. Yeah, and I was just looking up some scripture earlier when Michael was talking, because it started ringing a bell with me. Yea, all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution, but evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, and that from a child thou hast known the holy scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation through faith, which is in Jesus Christ. And I think I'll just end it there. It goes on by saying a couple more verses that are good too. I'll just add those into. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works.
Amen.
And that was 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 12 through 17.
Mm-hmm.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we ought to be very, very grateful for the scriptures that we've received from our heritage, our spiritual heritage. And many, many men had to suffer and die for this scripture to get this to us today. And I know I've listened to Tom Frest on numerous occasions talk about how people are so unthankful for the scripture. And it's sadly the case. And I think it's becoming very rare for people to realize how deceived the whole system is, how indoctrinated it is, how much ideology has been used, and in music especially, and I'm a musician, and I'm telling you that I have friends that are so deeply entrenched. It's just like hardly impossible to talk to them because they're so caught up in the things of the world, and they're drunk. They're literally drunk, and they cannot sober up. So I find it better to just leave them until they sober up. Well, let's talk. But I mean, if you're going to be drunk, I can't talk with you. Sorry. I don't know how, unless the Lord somehow shows me how to do it. It's a difficult thing, to speak to someone in that state of mind. They're in a different state of mind. So anyway, I've dealt with that a lot in my life. I mean, I'm a recovered drug user to some degree, and I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of talking about it. It's just something that, I had to resort to get through life. That's all. So what? I made it. I repent. I'm done with it.
Okay, listen, I think we already used some time. Anything other than continue the reading in this chapter that we are in. So I told you that I was listening to Tom Fress reading Codeword Barbelon. And I have two things that I still want to share with you, and probably we don't even start continuing the reading today, but with this that I'm going to read to you right now, we are coming a little bit back to the subject on hand. First of all, I wanted to tell you about what Tom Fress mentioned and what I was speaking about with Michael yesterday in the recording of Griesinger. That has to do with John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And I'm turning to that in a minute. Before that, I'm going to read to you a little part of page 524 of this book, because there are a lot of people who wonder, why is this book called Codeword Barbelon? And why is Barbelon, what is it referring to? Is it Babylon, or what does it mean? How does he come to that title? Yeah? So on page 524, and this is also something Tom did in one of the readings of Codeword Barbelon, he of course reads the whole book completely first, one or two, sometimes even three times before he goes to the microphone. I didn't do that, and by that, of course, I didn't know that was reading here, that was here on the end of the book, explaining why this book is Codeword Barbelon, written the way that it is, B-A-R-B-L-O-N. So let me read to you from page 524, where the author says, by way of footnote, if my reader is curious to know how the name for the title of this book was chosen, the story goes something like this. The name Barbelon, usually translated into English as Babylon, so B-A-R-B-E-L-O-N, as the book is written, translated into English as Babylon, B-A-B-Y-L-O-N, comes from barbelo, the Greek meaning forethought of first emanation of the Supreme Being, the mother of the aeons, means the ages. She was referred to by the pagans as Isis, Queen of Heaven, and Noea, the womb of the world and the mother of God, all of which are pedigrees of the same deity, who in Roman Catholicism is called Mary. The Gnostics and pagan regarded this entity as the emanation of the first cause, the creative principle who in turn created the entire manifest world, the ineffable parent. And the sorcerer Simon Magus, who we get to know, of course, in the book of Acts, chapter 10, if I'm not mistaken. The sorcerer Simon Magus, of whom it has been said with some justification was the first pope or father, and for that we can read Eusebius' Ecclesiastical History. Irenaeus even called Simon Magus the father of all heresies. And I can turn you to a book from Ernest L. Martin, which reads Simon Peter versus Simon Magus, Simon the Sorcerer. Tom Fress read that in the archives of 2009 of the archives of First Amendment Radio, and I will be reading that book shortly on my YouTube channel.
It's
excellent choice.
Act 8.
It's chapter 8. Okay, yeah. I always get mixed up with all these early chapters because I don't want to go too far, because I know in chapter 7 there's the stoning of Stephen, and it's the next chapter. Yeah, it's
I
chapter
read it
8.
this morning, so I remember well.
Okay, thank you, Michael, for the intervention here. And the sorcerer Simon Magus, of whom it has been said with some justification was the first Catholic pope or father, equated the Ennoia with Sophia, the co-creatrix. Today, the Catholic Church calls Mary co-redemptrix and co-creatrix of the universe. Let me ask you one question, dear listener, and of course, Brett and Michael. Where in the Bible is the word universe to be found? How can you already see when you open the Bible in the very first chapter, in the very first sentences of the Bible, where can you already see that the whole NASA agenda is nothing but deception? Well, let me read to you the beginning of the Bible. We read, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Does it say anywhere that God created the universe?
Nope.
He created what? The heaven and the earth. And we know that there are different heavens, because there is the heaven that we have that we can see, what we call our atmosphere, where the birds are flying and our planes are roaming and all that stuff. That's our kind of heaven. And there's a heaven above, the heaven of the stars, and the heaven where the sun is and where the moon is. But it doesn't say anything about a universe. God did not create a universe. So where the fuck are the NASA people going? Into your imagination, my dear listener. Nowhere else. There is no universe. There's the heaven and there's the earth, because that is what God made. God did not make a quote-unquote universe. Yeah? Today, the Catholic Church calls Mary co-redemptrix, and co-creatrix ... of the quote-unquote universe. Simon Magus also taught that in Ennoia, Sophia, Isis, Mary, call her what you will, was the action of the Father Creator manifesting through the Son. Hence, her title Barbelon, the mother of all occult systems of religion. Thus, Barbelon becomes a code word not just for Rome, but for all pagan systems from which Rome has borrowed and of those that have borrowed from Rome. And if you want to understand that more deeply, I can very much advise you 2 books. The one I read on my YouTube channel, and that is called Barbelon Mystery Religion, the original book by Ralph Woodrow that he wrote and published in 1966. And I don't even start on him recanting that book later on. And the other book that I can advise you to read, and Brett knows that very well too, is from Alexander Hislop, a book written in 1853, published between 1853 and 1858, called The Two Babylons. Yeah? There you can really understand how all these quote-unquote religions, all these pagan systems, where they come from and where Rome comes from. Now, the author continues to say here that would include any apostate Protestant religion which has followed the pagan practices, liturgy, or teachings of Rome. For Revelation says Rome is the, quote, mother of harlots, unquote. As for the subtitle of this book, The Sons of Loyola, etc., etc., I should hope that the reason for having chosen it is now plainly obvious. So far, the author on page 524 on his book, and my little explanation about that. You guys have any comments on what I just said or read?
Oh, that's excellent. Fits right in. It's a good little piece of the Babylon puzzle here that we're examining in detail in this book, and that's always good to address that topic. Where is this word Barbelon? And I thought that's just fascinating.
So, turning back to the discussion I had yesterday with Michael by reading the German book of Theodor Griesinger, which is entitled in English, let me just check here, because I have this book here to give you the title. It's History of the Jesuits. Yeah? The Jesuits, Complete History of Their Open and Secret Proceedings from the Foundation of the Order to the Present Time. This book was published first in 1866, and the second volume was published in 1872. And this PDF that you can get on the internet is from 1885, and it has some 850 pages. But that's not all of this book, because this is from the archives of Vatican Assassin somewhere. But it's a wonderful book. No, it's about 780, I see here. Yeah, it goes all to the end. Yeah. Anyway, I have the book printed in German, and I have the book on PDF in German and in English. And the point that I want to make is that when yesterday I was reading with Michael in the German version, part 29 of that book of Theodor Griesinger, I made a little explanation of what I heard Tom Fress say during his reading of Codeword Barbelon the other day when I was in the car. And Tom was explaining about the speech that Roman Catholic American President John Fitzgerald Kennedy gave on the quote-unquote secret societies somewhere in I think the beginning of 1963. I don't know when exactly, but a lot of people think that because of that speech he was killed. Now, that is a very interesting speech, and you can find that all over the internet. You can read it somewhere, probably it's in the print version. When you put it into the search engine on YouTube, you will find numerous videos where this secret society speech of John F. Kennedy is in full or in part uploaded, and you can make up your own mind about that. You don't even have to believe what I am saying to you about this, or what Tom Fress says about this. But Tom Fress made a very, very valid point, a point that I always knew, but I never explained in the way that Tom did it last time, and that was so wonderfully what he did. So, when JFK was speaking about the secret societies, he warned of a, quote, monolithic conspiracy, unquote. Those are the exact terms that JFK used. We as a nation are not adherent to secret societies and all that stuff, and he spoke of a, quote, unquote, monolithic conspiracy. Okay? Now, Tom then explained what does the term monolithic conspiracy actually mean? And he made the point that JFK used an oxymoron. Why? Because the word monolithic means of one, mono, only one. But a conspiracy is always two or more, quote unquote, conspiring or getting together on the behest of influencing the life or the doing of a third being. So when monolithic actually means one or from one, and conspiracy actually means of two or at least two, how can there be a monolithic conspiracy? Those are oxymorons, as Tom explained it very eloquently, as he always is in his explaining in First Amendment Radio on his broadcast on Inquisition Update. So the point is, how can there be a monolithic conspiracy when the one word actually abandons the second word, whether something is monolithic or something is a conspiracy? But you can't have a monolithic conspiracy. And he said, but you have to understand that John Fitzgerald Kennedy, even though a Catholic, he was a Knight of Columbus. He was a very well-educated person. The Kennedys are not stupid, and JFK was everything but a stupid person. Believe you me. So, how come that he uses the word monolithic conspiracy? Well, when you know the Jesuits, and this is what the reading Codeword Barbelon has been all about, in the beginning at least of the book, to understand the Jesuit order, we learned that from the very first training of every Jesuit, we learn that they have to be perende ac cadaver, means they have to be obedient as a corpse. Every Jesuit in his training is taught to leave his brain at the door, to have no conscience of his own, to have no mind of his own, to have no decisions of his own, to have no boundaries, whether carnal to any family, nor spiritually, except for to his superior and the Society of Jesus. Outside of the Society of Jesus, he has to have no bounds, no connections to the world, not to people, not to places, not to anything. He is to be the stick in the hands of an old man who uses that stick to whatever purpose he wants to. Now, the general of the Society of Jesus is the one who directs the whole society. I think that is without any question. That's the idea of a superior general of the Society of Jesus. Every Jesuit in that society is taught to do exactly as his superior does, or as his superior tells him to. And the ultimate superior of the Society of Jesus is the Black Pope, as they call him, the superior general of the Society of Jesus. Meaning, in other words, whatever that general says, thinks, does, proclaims, orders, is what every member of the Society of Jesus does. By that, the whole society is just the mirror of the thoughts and actions of the superior general. Nothing more and nothing less. So by that whole society acts as one, monolithic. And by that, the Jesuits are the perfect description of a monolithic conspiracy as said by JFK. He couldn't have expressed it any more perfect without using the word Jesuits to describe the Jesuit working in the world as a monolithic conspiracy. I think Tom drove that point home very, very well. I don't know if I did him right to try to repeat what he said, and I don't know if you guys all understand it the same way that he meant it yesterday. To me, it's quite clear. I mean, it is something that I said from the beginning, that the monolithic conspiracy was always referring to the Jesuits. But I never made that connection that Tom made yesterday, that because of the perende ac cadaver, the being as a corpse, that totally obedience to your superior, the whole society acts as just one man. When the general of the society acts, the whole society, every member of it acts like him. And therefore, it is the perfect description of a monolithic society. Do you guys have any remarks on what I just said?
Well, it's interesting because, certainly listening to Tom in Inquisition Update, he has such a very, how can I say this? Just such a gut level way of explaining things that he's really mastered that. I think that takes a long time to, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's something you have to really work at. I mean, it's like the Spirit is leading us into these discussions and these explanations, and it just takes time. I'm not the fastest with things. It takes me a lot longer probably than the average guy, but that's okay. I mean, we each just kind of have to take it at our own pace, I guess. How about you, Michael? What do you think?
Yeah, I know that JFK was a very smart guy, and also I did argue yesterday, or I did a comment to Jörg yesterday in German, that I find the monolithic like an expression. I got an image like a pyramid, whereas one is standing on top and just throwing a stone, and the stone descends from every level to the lower levels, and so you only need one thing or one man or one spirit above to get this operation done. And so that was were my thoughts on this subject, because you see that every lower level only thinks, oh, there's something coming from the next level on top of me. And so you really need only one origin, one man, one spirit, or whatsoever, to get this whole thing running. And so it's for me, the monolithic is like the pyramid of the Freemasons.
Good point. I like that. That really makes a lot of sense. And if you look at that structure of Freemasonry illustration that was done, I've used it in some of my recent videos, and I'm sure Jörg has used it many times in the past too. It just shows you that, it's basically a pyramid they're standing on, which they have different steps on different sides of the pyramid, being the York Rite and the Scottish Rite in America. And it's just interesting, if you start thinking it like that, that the guy on the top can start throwing rocks on anyone he wants. That's a good way to explain it a little bit. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's even the same as for example in politics, because every person is referring to the next higher level, because he's telling you, okay, I can't help it, I got all my orders. Yeah, and that goes on and on and
but
on.
But they never
on.
Tell you officially who's on top, and they never will.
Yeah, correct.
It's always about keeping you confused about who the enemy is. So they just keep pawning it off on the lower people. They never give the upper levels any flack.
Yes, and they feel very comfortable, because they have no they have no responsibility. You see, they can always give their responsibility to the next higher level and say, okay, I can't help it. I'm sorry, I would like to help you, but
that's like the all-seeing eye.
That's the big excuse all the civil servants used after World War II in Germany. I just followed my orders.
Oh, no. Yeah,
that was their excuse. That was their excuse for not knowing of the so-called Holocaust and all the atrocities of the Nazi government during and before World War II.
Sure, it's.
I was
as
just
stupid
following
as
orders. And you know, when you go to your what is that, to your mayor, to your town hall in your own town, just for example, because you have to renew your passport. You have to renew your passport. Did you know that here in Belgium I get a fine of a few $100 if I don't renew my passport?
Really?
Yeah, and when they say to you within a few years, now you have to put your biometric data into that, like fingerprint or ISIS scan or whatever, then you have to do that. You know, these guys are only saying, hey, I'm just following orders, you know?
Yep.
Right.
It's the law.
Same thing.
I don't, they are deprived of thinking for themselves.
Yes, they are.
Now, what is that different from all the guys who are in the Society of Jesus, in this Jesuit order? Nothing. There's no difference at all. No. Just think of it when you go to the military. I was in the military for 8 years. In the military, you don't do anything unless you are given orders. You don't think for yourself. No. You do as you're told.
Yeah, I was in the military too.
And especially in the United States of America, when you belong to some of these quote-unquote elite troops, like the Navy SEALs or guys like that,
right?
You don't think for yourself. When you think for yourself, you'll be thrown out of that.
Yeah.
You have to blindly obey your orders. And there's a very good movie that I want to advise everybody to watch in that regard. A Few Good Men. A movie with Tom Cruise and the one from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson. And Demi Moore also plays in that. And that gives you a very, very profound understanding of, in that case, I think it's about the Navy SEALs also, and the Marines, who have a base out there on Cuba, and are quote-unquote surrounded by communists. And there is a case of a dead soldier that is being laid out through a military tribunal in that movie, A Few Good Men. If you want to understand perende ac cadaver, being obedient as a corpse, more or less, in a softened version, watch that movie and you will understand that. And I'm very sorry, we have come to already a little bit more than an hour, and again, we didn't succeed in reading further in this wonderful book, Codeword Barbelon, so I guess we have to postpone that to tomorrow. But I think that we had today a wonderful, fruitful conversation about things outside of that book that matter at least as much as any knowledge that book can provide us with. The excursion that Michael did on the family and the family values, and we all did together, and all the other things we were discussing today, I think those are very profound things to talk about. And sometimes it's just like that. We come to the table, connected via Skype, but we don't have our own agenda, but we do what the Holy Spirit leads us to do. And this broadcast that I'm quite sure Brett will very fast work into an own video was absolutely led by the Holy Spirit. He led us into that we were saying what we are saying. And I have to postpone, of course, the next reading of Codeword Barbelon then until tomorrow. I don't have anything more to say, but I thank everybody who contributed to this broadcast, Brett and Michael, for contributing to everything that you guys did, what you said, and I thank, of course, the Holy Spirit for leading us into all truth. And I'm just going to say I shot my barrels again.
Right.
And
great.
I just love it when we come together this way. And sometimes it's just not meant for us to continue reading of that book, but to divert a little bit into other subjects as we did today. And I just love it. And I want to say thank you, Brett, for the invitation to have me on. And well, until next time.
All right.
Yeah, I'd like to,
great. Please, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to take over because just discovered a quote I would like to add on that subject. The quote, it's actually a very old quote, which is attributed to Mr. Molière, which is a French, French actor or French poet or something. But it's not that it's Molière, but it's the meaning of the phrase, which goes like that: we are not only responsible for the things we do, but also for the things we don't do. And that's I think it's about the responsibility you do have. If you can prevail evil, you should do this, because otherwise, you just you serve the wrong side. I don't know how to get it more straight in the face, but you see everywhere where you cannot only make good things or spread the word out, but if you discover evil, you have only to act like a Christian, because otherwise, please take over, Brad. I think you can better.
Yeah, I think that that word undone has a lot to do, having to do with the Bible too. And I know that that's part of the. Excuse me, I just can't think of the name of this right now. Apostles' Creed, I think it is, that we would say in the church every week, and this is part of the indoctrination. And I think we were in a Bible study with Tom Fress, and he had mentioned that the Apostles' Creed came from one of these Nicene councils or something, and it's very old. But that's another doctrine. But as far as the Bible goes, I'm on Luke chapter 11, verse 42. But woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rue, and all manner of herbs, and pass over the judgment and the love of God. These ought ye have done. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. Woe unto you, Pharisees, for ye love the uppermost seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye are as graves which appear not, and the men that walk over them are not aware of them. So indeed, Scripture just has a way of refining all of these phrases that we use. I like to search the Scriptures and even in small instances like this, just to I think this Luke 11 has a lot to do with Matthew 23 as well, because Jesus rebuked the scribes and Pharisees so well in Matthew 23. I think every one of us should read that, thoroughly study that. And certainly I was led there of the Lord when I was reviewing the speech that Pope Francis gave to Joint Session of Congress in 2015. But anyway, we will close the session. I think we're well into an hour and a quarter here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a second. I just want to make a little comment on what Michael just said. I don't know about Molière and his quote, but I can tell you that Martin Luther is attributed to the quote, "You are not only responsible for the things that you say, but also for the things that you do not say."
Yeah, good point.
Good point. That's right. Mm-hmm. And with that, we'll close it up. And God bless everybody. We'll catch up with you next time. Bye-bye for now.
That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy. No democracy pretends to be a tyranny. Most tyrannies pretend they are democracies. Democracy remains the definition of political legitimacy. That has not changed, and that will not change. That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
A noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
That appeal is proved not just by the content of people's hopes, but a noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
A noteworthy hypocrisy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 There's gorillas in the street, everyone you meet, everywhere you look is a gorilla. Gorillas in the bank, gorillas driving tanks, gorillas out in space, gorillas in your face, gorillas in your house, running all about. Everywhere you look is a gorilla. Your brother's a gorilla, your sister's a gorilla, your folks are both gorillas. You are a gorilla. Gorillas wearing suits, gorillas in pursuit. Everywhere you look you see gorillas. Who deserves the rage? Who deserves the cage? The animal within ya. You are a gorilla.
Yet for years, challenges have been gathering to the principles we hold dear, and we must take them seriously. Some of these problems are external and obvious. Here in New York City, you know the threat of terrorism all too well.
Gorillas sailing ships, gorillas taking trips. Everywhere you look you see gorillas. They sit there in their chairs, they're walking up the stairs, they're riding in their cars. Gorilla movie stars, gorillas in the news, they even play the blues. Everywhere you look you see gorillas. Behind the cash machines, selling gasoline. Gorillas in the house, gorillas all about.
It's being fought even now on distant frontiers and in the hidden world of intelligence and surveillance. There is the frightening, evolving threat of nuclear proliferation and outlaw regimes. There's an aggressive challenge by Russia and China to the norms and rules of global order.
There's gorillas in the street, everyone you meet, everywhere you look is a gorilla. Gorillas in the back, gorillas driving tanks, gorillas out in space, gorillas in your face, gorillas in your house, running all about. Everywhere you look is a gorilla. Your brother's a gorilla, your sister's a gorilla, your folks are both gorillas. You are a gorilla.
They propose revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Our politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.